This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I break down the college football playoff. We talk about two of the most entertaining and epic games we have witnessed in the history of the college football playoff. And then we also talk about Jim Harbaugh finally getting it done. And can he win a national title for Michigan? We talk about Washington and that crazy story of how they're leaving the Pac-12. Can they leave it with a championship? And we predict and give our takes on the big game coming up Monday night. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, that's Josh, and happy 2024. It's 2024. A new year. It's a new me. Year. I think that's how it goes. I don't really know. But Josh, how are you feeling? Today's the 3rd of January as we're recording this. How do you feel entering this new year? Another great year coming in front of us.
Yeah, it's going to be a year of a lot of changes, at least in sports. We're going to have the 12-team college football playoff in this calendar year. We're going to have some new rule changes to the MLB in this calendar year. Hopefully we get some, well, I guess in this season, we got to see the NBA's regular season tournament that happened in 2023, but in the 23-24 season, hopefully we get to see the Columbus Blue Jackets in the 2024 NHL playoffs, but not looking good right now. But 2024, it is here.
It is now. It's the year of the Reds and Guardians trying to build up expectations and then plummeting below them. There will be many things happening. I hope you guys had an amazing new year. Hope you guys didn't do anything stupid. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I don't know. But I hope you guys enjoyed celebrating 2023, reflecting on it. I know for us, I can speak for both Josh and I here, like we really appreciate. I had someone comment the other day that lives here in Hungary, just how much they enjoy listening to our sports podcast, even though they don't even understand half the sports we talk about. But you know what? That's what we're here for, to enlighten people, right? To enlighten. But speaking of enlightening, Josh, there was a coach by the name of Kirby Smart that enlightened the world with a post-game speech that I think was necessary. We heard Chip Kelly a few weeks ago. This one was even more necessary, I think, for everyone to hear. Before we get into all the playoffs games and everything like that, I really wanted to focus on this, and I want to start with you, Josh. And what did you feel, and do you feel like it was needed, like I just previously said?
Yeah, this is something that I've heard Chip Kelly even touched on it last year about how the calendar just affects every school, especially a place like UCLA where he coaches and they go by quarters. So they don't even have like the semester schedule that most schools have. But at least this time with Kirby is a thought that I think we all have, where the way that things are set up and you got this transfer portal and it's like immediately after week 12 rivalry week, you got people that are already leaving the school and therefore aren't going to play in the bowl game. And you got the NFL opt-outs, and it's just like you see a shell of a team, which is that's exactly what we saw with Florida State. We knew it wasn't going to be the same team that went 13-0 going into that game. Kirby Smart acknowledged that. And as a result of the way that the system's set up, we only got to see second and third stringers over at Florida State that weren't ready to play, that had to get nationally and publicly embarrassed with that, 63-3 final score. And we talked about it on the show. We thought it was going to be a bloodbath. But basically, if Georgia wanted it to be, they could make it happen.
And
put a 50 piece, and they did. Yeah, I think I only went with like 38-3, but yeah, definitely we're capable of doing more damage as they did. But Kirby's right, man. They got to change the way that the transfer portal schedule works. We got to have more people playing in these games that should be playing in them. We got to avoid games like this, but.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, Josh, is I look at even like Michigan's defensive lineman, I forget who it was, even talked about Ohio State, and like, 'cause someone brought up the question, like, did you see that Ohio State game? They only scored 3 points, and he brought up like, look, that's not the same team we faced again a month ago. That's not the same team we saw on film all year, right? You had Kleinholtz coming in at quarterback because of Brown, and we'll get into the game. And you look at other teams the same way. Penn State had a couple opt-outs. You had, and look, I'm all for it. If you're a top 10 pick opting out, I'm all for it. If you want to go make your money, we saw with a lot of the top players. But it's like the other ones that, like, I look at Kyle McCord, I look at some of these other guys. It's like you were such a pivotal part of your team. And then because of the way the transfer portal falls, You decide, well, I'm just going to opt out. I won't finish the year. I've heard a lot of former players say this. There needs to be an initiative of benefiting teams and players of staying, right? I've heard people say there should be a 2-year window where you have to stay with a team for 2 years. You have to. You can transfer after that, but you have to stay for 2 years to, I think, one, develop. Like, look, these guys that are going to 6 schools in 5 years, you're not getting developed. You're basically just being a free agent that's just going around applying your craft here and there. Whereas I think it affects so many more things. I think Kirby Smart did a great thing by saying, like, look, I think if you had the Florida State team that was there in week 10, that's a closer game. And that game is like a really entertaining game. But you looked at Florida State's roster. I think it was something like 13 starters. I mean, they lost
We had, I think,
two
15. We were up
receivers.
to 15.
Yeah, two receivers, starting running back, starting quarterback, two defensive linemen, two starting linebackers, a
Tight end.
DB, a tight end. Like, how is that fair? Like that to first off, I'm just thinking of it as like as a coach, like I try to instill in our players that like, team above everything. And I know for some guys like money wise, whatever, but then some of these guys are like third round picks or they're transferring because they're mad they didn't get playing time. Like, dude, finish it out. And maybe Josh, it's because of this new era we're in life, this new era of the world that we're in, where it's like you don't have to finish what you started, right? Whatever's greener and brighter on the other side, that's where you head. But to me, it's really frustrating.
The other thing with that too, those guys that sat for Florida State, I can speak for Keon Coleman, Jaheim Bell, and Johnny Wilson. They were transfers in themselves, so it's
Yeah,
not like they have any like attachment to Florida State. Like I've been
yeah,
here 4 years and I want to finish this season out with my brothers. So this transfer portal culture that we
messes with
got is
everything.
definitely playing into this. I like the thought of 2 years, but if you want to keep unlimited transfers in, there's got to be a penalty, like sit out
There
for one
has
season,
to.
like it used to
You,
be. Otherwise, like you said, you could play on 4 teams in 4 years, and
yeah. Well,
not going to affect your eligibility any way whatsoever, and it
and the
has to.
and the waivers they have are so stupid, dude. Like me or you could walk up and get a waiver. Like I probably could go up and walk and get a waiver and say, hey, my shoulder got it messed up. I fell off a ladder a couple years ago. Could I get another year? Right. Like that's what I
Hmm.
feel like we're doing. Like I feel like, like when you were a kid, well, here in Hungary specifically, as a teacher, we get these parents that go to their doctor and the doctor's really like lazy and doesn't really want to like fill out doctor's forms or like permission slips for like missing
Yeah.
days. And so they fill out like 20 of them and then they give them to the parent, right? I feel like that's
Yep.
what we do. Like they just fill them out and say, all right, who wants one? Here you go. Here you go. Because look, 8 years in college football is so stupid. 7 years in college football is so dumb. 5 years, I get it. You redshirted a year, fine. But like these dudes are breaking records and they're proud of it. I'm like, dude, you broke records when you played two basically careers in one career. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's why like I give props to like Archie Griffin, two-time Heisman winner. I'm still surprised we haven't had a double Heisman winner because of just all the transferring that's been going on. But to me, man, it's so frustrating, dude. Like I don't know about you. Doesn't it like make you like not necessarily enjoy your team? Like I enjoy Ohio State, but like, isn't it harder to like get attached to players because you're like, okay, is this guy leaving in 2 years? You know what I mean? Like it's really
Yeah.
weird.
I heard Josh Pate talk about maybe a solution to bowl season is to make the bowl games happen of week one in the next season.
Interesting.
That way, week one is always an exciting start to the season. Everybody's playing somebody at least to kick
Yeah.
the year off. There's not any FCS matchups or MAC matchups. I mean, you can still maybe have those week two, week three. We'll see what happens with the, expanded SEC and Big Ten
Yeah.
conferences, how their out of conference schedules get end up looking. But at least week one is going to be fun. And I mean, it's not going to be a perfect system. You might have one team that, like, let's just take Oregon Liberty, for example. Liberty's quarterback's transferring next year. They might be a shell of this year's Liberty team, and Oregon's going to continue to dominate. Um, I mean, right now, we don't have a perfect system either. We got a lot of people sitting out.
Yeah.
We're not getting the same teams that we saw that year, anyways. So why not just
And
put them in next year, have all, 22
yeah.
starters that are going to be playing, and that's how you kick the season off. Week one's fun every year
And
as a
I've even,
result.
but what I've even heard people say, like, I think it was Joel Klatt said, like, why not just move the season up earlier, right? So that way the different deadlines and portal windows and stuff maybe don't affect as much, right? Maybe you move it up to mid-August, right? You move the season to mid-August, and that way you're playing the college football playoff final is like January 1, right? So you have so much more time in order to play this, because some teams next year are going to play what, 16 games? Some teams. I mean, if you go all the way to the end, you're going to play like 16 games or 17,
Yeah,
which is just ridiculous in college football, by the way. Just weird to say. But at the end of the day, man, Josh, I think what Kirby Smart did was smart. No pun intended. Um, because for me, I think it was important that someone with value in the sport says, look, this needs to change or else we're going to not enjoy college football. College football is not going to, it's basically not going to exist if this keep happening. It's just
hmm
going to be an amateur league, kind of like the minor leagues of baseball, where guys go and play. They, maybe get a degree on the side. They play for 3 years and they're off to the NFL, right? Like, it, you need to have value to it. And again, I think it starts with the coaches too, like putting value in being here and being developed. I think Ohio State does a good job of it. I think Alabama, Georgia, like they've been doing a good job of it, of keeping guys as best they can. But then you have off years like this where, Ohio State loses 17 to the portal, right? Like that's unheard of for Ohio State. Again, it's the times are changing. You have to adapt as you go on.
for sure. You want to get into the
Yes,
some
sir.
of the bowl games happening over the weekend? You want to start with uh the New Year's Six games, or you want to go right into the playoffs and work our way down?
Let's go New Year's 6. Get it off my
New Year's
chest.
Six. Okay. Ohio State, Missouri, then. Let's just get this
Yeah,
out of the way. This was the most mad I have been watching college football all year, and that's only
I
because
was pissed
I
off,
didn't
man.
watch the Georgia Florida State game, or else I would have been more mad. But I was watching Ohio State, Mizzou with the expectation that we have almost full rosters here. Yeah, you don't have McCord on the Ohio State side, or Marv, or Michael Hall Jr., or Lathan Ransom. That's fine. We still got the bulk of the Ohio State starters over here. And then the
Yeah.
same on Missouri's side. We got Brady Cook at quarterback. We got Schrader at running back. And we only got a couple guys on the defensive side that we're missing over there. This is going to be a heck of a game to watch. And instead, it was 3-0 in the middle of the third quarter. And I was mad with how boring of a game it was and just the lack of offensive line play. And I shut it off and went to bed.
You
Did
know,
you have a similar reaction?
well, you see, Josh, I'm in Hungary, which is, I don't know, 6 hours ahead of your time, right? Which, by the way, I'm recording in daylight, which never happens when we record these podcasts. Um, but no, I was up at 2 a.m. thinking, wow, this is gonna be a great game. So excited, pumped up. My wife goes, "You're crazy, you're nuts," and I said, "I am." And I started watching the game, and I was like, "Okay, 3-0, weird, but hey, the defense playing great. The offense will figure it out." But when Devin Brown went down, I remember, I remember just staring into the wall, going, this was what every Ohio State fan was praying did not happen, was that you had to throw out a brand new freshman, which, by the way, if you looked at Missouri's defense, they weren't really blitzing too much. They were blitzing a little bit early on. As soon as he went out of it, and I saw them blitzing him, like, this dude is in, like, he is in a penitentiary. Like, he's literally about to get just annihilated because I saw we weren't blocking well. And look, there's a lot of people saying that Tristan Gebbia should have came in. I'm with that crowd. I think you bred it. I don't care if the guy's barely played this year. He's played for 5 years in college football. You put a guy who's veteran. Hey, he hands the ball off, throws this quick passes. There you go, right? Um, I was very angry, I guess, Josh, in a sense, because I felt the defense played phenomenal. Let's be honest. I mean, the defense for 3.5
It's what
quarters
we've come
played
to expect from
phenomenal.
Ohio State.
I mean, look, if you were to tell me, Josh, that Ohio State would keep Missouri scoreless for 3 quarters, and in the fourth quarter they would give up 2 touchdowns, I think we both would say Ohio State won that game. We would
Yeah, I'd
both
be
say
like,
that they
those are
would have won
two
that game.
garbage time touchdowns that they
Yes,
scored on Ohio State's
which they
actual
were.
third stringers.
Which that's the crazy thing is they were garbage time touchdowns if you think about it. I mean, the end of the game, and to me, I was very frustrated because I think Jack Sawyer played the best game in a Buckeye uniform. I mean, he looked like a stud, like a guy that we've all wanted to see. Denzel Burke had a great game. The linebackers played okay, not great, but again, no Eichenberg. You had to kind of make adjustments. JTT played all right. The defensive tackles played phenomenal, right? Michael Hall ended up, he ended up announced he's going to the NFL, but everyone played great. Then you look at the offense. Why on God's green earth they decided to switch centers the 2 weeks before the game happens, and you put, you move Jones over, which is fine, like he's a good player, but then you put Enoch Vemahai, who, I don't know if you watched the game, was atrocious at guard. Like, this dude couldn't
It just
block
collectively looked like the
anything.
whole offensive line wasn't good.
No, and yeah,
I don't even know the names.
and then the thing is that, Travion, he looked good when he had a chance. Like, I don't know if you saw that one play, Josh, where he had like a lane and then he cut it outside instead of inside, and I was like, dude, it's a touchdown if you cut it inside. Um, But obviously they didn't look the same without Marv. And you're like, well, if they had Marv, I'm like, no, dude, if they had Marv, they still would have been able to get him the ball. Um, yeah, it was tough, man. I'm really frustrated. I also heard something that like possibly Ohio State only practiced 6 days from the end of the Michigan game to the Missouri game.
That's what one of their
Which
players said.
if that is true, that Ryan Day really needs to get a shaking because that's ridiculous. And again, man, I don't know what's going on. Like a part of me just feels like this just needs to be a whole new reset. Like some guys just need to go. And I think we both can tell you. I mean the punter even transferred. When the punter transfers, you know you have to start over. No, I think
Yeah,
there's a few coaches that go. Like I think the quarterbacks coach is going to be gone. I think you're going to see the special teams coach gone. I think you might even see the training coach Marotti. There's a good chance he might be gone. Um, I just to me, I think Ryan Day needs to look himself in the mirror and he needs to say, am I done being the play caller and can I be CEO? Look, it hasn't worked for Riley. It hasn't worked for a lot of these coaches. Ryan Day, you've given up control of the defense. You basically said, Knowles, this is your baby. And look what's happened. It's looked phenomenal over the last 2 years. Now it's time for him to get a veteran play caller in and say, here, take the offense. I need to be a Urban Meyer type CEO who's just going to overlook everything and help where I need to be. And I don't
there's
know if that's going to happen. And that's the scary part.
what does that mean for Brian Hartline then, who is the OC right now
No, I'm
on
not saying like,
paper?
and let's be honest, I think we all know that he's never really been the OC. It's just a pay
But he
grade.
has the title
Yes.
now, so that means you'd have to take it away and
No,
demote him.
no. I think what would happen, if anything, would just be a co-offense coordinator, kind of like they did with Wilson. They did with Wilson and Day when Day first came to Ohio State, where they did this kind of co-offense coordinator type thing. Um, because at the end of the day, I think Brian Hartline just loves receivers. Like if you look at him, I don't know how much he loves calling plays or the idea of calling plays. Like I just think Ohio State knew they had to throw money at him and they have to keep him. I think James Lord-Nice is another guy that you have to throw money at, no matter what his role is on the team. You have to keep him on as a recruiter. Um, yeah, man, it's tough. I mean, you have bright sides to look forward to. Jeremiah Smith is going to be a stud. I don't know if you've seen some of the film of him. He is just unreal. There's a lot of other guys. I got to give my hats off to Missouri, though. Missouri showed up. They didn't look great the first 3 quarters, and they scored when they had to. And the defense played really, really well. So I got to credit where credit's due. And yeah,
11-win season for the Tigers. Yeah, definitely hats off. And we kind of already gave our thoughts on Georgia Florida State opening up, so I don't think we got to
yeah,
talk about that one
no.
too much more. Ole Miss and Penn State though. Ole Miss wins this game 38-25. Jackson Dart looked pretty phenomenal in this
Which we
one, I
said he
thought.
would.
We did, yeah. On the flip side, Drew Aller might have played one of his best games of the
Yeah.
season too, honestly. Not so much on the completion rate, 19 of 39, but 295 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm going to go ahead and check where that ranks amongst his season highs, but uh, I think the game lived up. That is okay. Week 1 against West Virginia, he threw for 325. So this is the most he's thrown since then. His second best output of the season for Drew
Yeah.
Aller.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, they also had. I think Penn State had their offensive tackle, Fanashu or Fu, however you pronounce his name. I don't remember, but he was sitting out too. So that was a big. I think a big disappointment for them. I think as well.
Yeah. But yeah, Dart goes 379 yards and 3 touchdowns. Judkins goes 106 yards on the ground. It was a game, like we said, that had not as many opt-outs as well, similar to the Ohio State Missouri game, and it should be a fun one to watch. And it ended up being that way. Ole Miss gets their first 11-win season in program history.
Now that's weird to think about. I always thought they had a couple in there, but no, for me, the game was what a high state game should have looked like. I feel like that this whole style of game is what it should have looked like if it wasn't so crappy. Is what I feel like.
Right.
And oh, also, as I just looked, I got breaking news on my phone. Kansas State quarterback Will Howard will visit Ohio State officially coming up in the next couple days. Just so you know, fun little
Hmm.
tidbit. Interesting how that will go. How Devin Brown feels about that if he's going to burn the ships.
Burn the boats, yeah. Let's see. Oregon Liberty went about
Oh
as
my gosh, that was
one-sided
dude.
as
That
we
was
thought
the
it would too.
ugliest. Dude, that was the ugliest game outside of the Florida State game. Like at least the Florida State game like was surprising because we're like, oh, this is really like this one was like we all knew, but we were hoping, and it once again showed how when you don't play any big teams and you just play like these small conference teams, you're going to get annihilated when you face good competition. Like you're just going to get annihilated.
100%. Bo Nix 363 yards and 5 touchdowns to end his Oregon
Jesus,
career.
unreal, dude. What
Bucky
a
Irving,
career,
100,
man. What a
yeah,
career.
what a career for sure there. Never saw this coming when he transferred into Oregon a
No,
few
we
seasons
all
ago.
thought like, oh, he'll be a developmental guy, like he might get, some good stats, but he'll never be like a top guy. And
I didn't
he's
even
a top
think
guy.
that he'd be the week one starter necessarily
That's
when
true.
the
Yeah.
year started. Thought it might have been, I think it was Tyler Show at the time was over there and one of the higher ranked recruits. But Bucky Irvin, 14 carries, 117 yards and a touchdown. Tez Johnson went off with 11 catches, 172 yards and a touchdown. Liberty's quarterback, Caden Slater, who's now in the
The
transfer
portal, yeah.
portal, maybe because he saw how this game went.
He's like, never mind.
15 to 24, 126
I
yards, a
mean, he's
touchdown, and a
good.
pick.
I mean, he's a pretty good player. I mean, he can run the ball and throw it. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah. And I'd also want to make sure that we give Liberty, the
I mean, they
tip of the
did.
cap
I mean, yeah.
for whether it was fraudulent or not. 13-0 season never happens over there.
No.
So within the Liberty
And this was
bubble, within the
after Hugh
Liberty,
Freeze left, which is
yeah,
crazy.
within the Liberty fan base, this was an awesome season and something that I don't think anybody expected to be playing in when the year
No.
started.
I mean, they could have got an easier draw when it came to like I honestly believe the Ohio State Liberty game might have been actually interesting.
Yeah, or
it
Florida State Liberty.
might have been actually interesting, but
Yeah.
you know,
All right. I think that is all
that
the New
covers
Year's
it.
Six games. Yeah, I mean the other games that happened, we got to see Nico Alui Malua. I know I didn't say that name right. Lead
Come on,
Tennessee to.
man, you should know it by now.
I will by next season. I mastered Uyunglele. I mastered Tagovailoa. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and say here 12 and 19, 151 yards and a touchdown. Uh, had 27 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns as well. So that's his debut.
He
That's
looks good.
yeah, I
He
was
looks
number
really
one or
good.
two quarterback in this year's freshman class, and he's back next year. So that's going to be exciting for Tennessee fans for sure. Watching that. And then LSU beat Wisconsin 35-31 over the weekend as well.
Without
Tanner Morton
without their guy.
without their guy, yeah, Garrett Nussmeier, who is going to be taking over next season, goes off for 395 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that's something exciting for LSU fans to watch out for. And for Wisconsin, it's like, okay, this is a 7-6 in the first year of Luke Fickell. Not the start that you wanted to. And this was actually one of the teams that we thought at the start of the season had an easy enough schedule that they could win 10 games.
Yeah, we did.
But yeah, just the talent ended up not being there like we thought. There was a lot of injuries that they had to deal with as the season went on. And I'm sure Luke's going to bounce back from this. But that brings us, Ben, to the playoff games. And I'm going to go
Ugh.
ahead and lead off with the 27-20 final score from Michigan, Alabama in overtime.
Uh,
The 37-31 final from Washington, Texas, coming down to the final play is exactly what the media and the TV people wanted. So they got what they wanted. However, we got to see Michigan come out on top, which is what the legit college football fans across the country wanted. All the
oh yeah,
casuals that
for
said out,
sure.
listen here. All the casuals told you and me that Alabama belonged here because they're a team that's capable of winning this game. And when you go to overtime with Michigan, yeah, you are capable of winning. But the fact that they are not in the national championship, and I don't have to hear it from them that they made the national championship game. See, they did belong. They Florida State would have been a non-game, non-spectacle whatsoever. We get to see Michigan in the national championship game here. A W for the real fans, an L to the casuals.
You know, I will say though, as an Ohio State fan, oh, that's the only time I've ever rooted for Alabama. And I was hoping they'd pull this one out. As
You were
much
those fans that
as
had the Alabama shirt or the
oh,
Ohio
as
State
much
fans
as
rooting for
like, dude,
Alabama shirts.
I was like, man, I saw the score. Like, I had updates on my phone because I was like, it was late at night, so I was like going to bed. I was like, all right, Alabama, we got this. And then yeah, choked. Which by the way, fun fact: if Alabama does not win the national title next year, it'll be the first group of first class that Saban's recruited that will not have won a a national title in his tenure
Yeah,
at Alabama, which is wild to think about.
that is. I'm gonna word what I just said a lot less obnoxiously too. I got what I wanted with Michigan being the national championship, and the casual crowd got what they wanted with a good game.
It was a good game. Like I get again, I got to give hats off to Michigan. Now, I'm very interested to see what happens if they win a national title, right? I know we'll get into the prediction and everything in the preview of the game, but what do they do? Because Josh, that there will be people flooding to say this was not a true championship for Michigan. There will be people. I'm not saying if they're right or wrong, but there will be people. And the question is, what is the NCAA going to do? Are they going to do like they've proven at times in the past to take away vacating things? Would they vacate a title away, even if they won it literally the previous year? That's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this whole investigation. And it's also very interesting that Jim Harbaugh has not signed the contract, and he's also hired an agent who's a very NFL agent, which might be preliminary to what might be happening behind the scenes. I'm just
Yeah, I'm
saying.
gonna go ahead and tackle that legitimate national championship or not right now and say Michigan's won all their big games
It's true.
after the Connor Stallions allegations came out, when they definitely would not have been cheating while they're
Yeah,
under
yeah,
that
for
kind of a
sure, for sure.
microscope. They came out and beat Penn State, they came out and beat Ohio State, they came out and beat Iowa, and now they beat Alabama.
Yep, I agree.
Granted, none of them were blowouts, but these are good teams that they played. They are supposed to be good
Yep.
games.
Yeah.
And all of Michigan's big games are legitimate wins as far as I'm concerned. And if they beat Washington, another legitimate win. They did everything because that culture in there is incredible. That team chemistry is incredible. This is what you would expect, just like we said in the preview, a team that's been together for basically 3 years, has been to the playoffs 3 straight years, has won the Big Ten championship 3 straight years. This is the kind of culture, chemistry, poise, and gamesmanship that you would expect. Like they weren't affected by the noise at all. They just kept their heads down,
Yeah.
played together as a team, stuck it out, played together, and here they are in a national championship. I just didn't think that Jim Harbaugh had it in him to get out of the way, to prepare well for a bowl game. I guess it's never been done before, but if we would have eliminated all years past and looked at this game just in the 2023 season vacuum, I think everybody would have been picking Michigan. There wouldn't have been a doubt about it,
No.
especially when you look
Yeah.
at the way that Alabama's played most of the season. Now we can have the benefit of hindsight of how their season went and how they lost to Texas, how they struggled against South Florida, struggled against Arkansas, struggled against Texas A&M, struggled against Auburn, and then had that one-off game where they were able to beat Georgia. That's really all that we have to
Yeah.
add to Alabama's resume,
Yeah.
honestly, because if you look at the rest of the season, they don't have anything else. I mean, if Jaden Daniels stays healthy in that LSU game, LSU was matching their pace. It could have been like at least an overtime game, not a two-score win for Alabama. But yeah, I guess that's what I got to say about that. This is going to be a legitimate Michigan national championship as far as I'm concerned. But you're absolutely right that especially in Columbus, Ohio, and probably
Oh,
the
for
whole
sure.
state,
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
it's going to be a bunch of naysayers out here that are going to be pointing the finger, and we'll
Look,
see what the NCAA
yeah.
does.
Look,
But
I do think the NCAA, and I think you agree with me. I do think the NCAA is going to be pretty harsh. Like I do feel like there's going to be a harsh punishment of some kind, whether that's scholarships, whether that's limited visits or whatever. You would agree though. Like I feel like they're going to be harsh in some sense because I think they got to nip this in the butt now before it becomes a regular thing.
yeah, I figured
You know,
the real punishment, if they do complete the investigation and have hard evidence, that it was going to come at the end of the season. What
yeah,
I've hated about this whole process is that the investigation's still ongoing.
which is
They
stupid,
haven't
by the way.
proven anything yet by the book, I guess, if we're going by the way that courts are supposed to go. And we're suspending Jim Harbaugh and like coming up with all these like weird, stupid in-season suspensions. And it's like, why don't we just finish the investigation before we deal anything out? What if it comes out that there was no conclusive evidence that Michigan cheated, and then you did all that to Harbaugh just because the media and the public told you to?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see how it plays out. But
Yeah.
if we look at the game though, to me,
Yeah, let's talk about this
yeah,
game now.
to me, Blake Corum was again phenomenal. He set the record, I think, for the most touchdowns. I think in Michigan history. I think most rushing
The most
touchdowns.
rushing touchdowns in a season, I think, and it might
History.
have been career
No,
too
career.
in there.
Yeah, yeah. He said career. He was like
In
56. I think
career
he said.
and season, okay.
Um, and then JJ McCarthy. Now, at times, he still looks like, as someone who's coaching quarterbacks, at times I just look at him and I'm like, dude, you make some risky decisions. Like There's just part of me that's like,
Talk
dude, this
about the
dude,
first play of the game, the Caleb
yeah.
Downs interception that somehow got
I'm like,
overturned. I was like, shoot, man, first play, but
yeah, like it to me, I just feel like he's maybe you can disagree with me. I just feel like he takes too many risks. And in a national title game here in the next week against a team that if you give the ball to Washington, that's a no-no. Right? Alabama, we were unsure about their offense. Washington, we know Washington's offense. And I don't think McCarthy has the ability. I still think he's trying to figure out how to be that balanced quarterback, when to take risks, when not to take risks. And I think he has to figure that out. But in this game, he did what he had to do. Blake Corum did what he had to do. The offensive line was pretty good, I think, most of the part for most of the game. The defense was obviously made a couple big stops, was phenomenal. But Michigan kicked themselves in the foot. They missed what? 2 extra points, a
oh, the
field
Michigan
goal.
special teams dude, I was thinking Parker
Dude, that was a
Fleming was
high
calling
state.
this game.
That's what I thought. I was like, this is a high state. By the
It's
way,
like, how is Parker Fleming on the sideline right now?
also the fumble, the punt fumble that was like at the goal line, that ball that had been inch it. That was
Oh
that
my
was
gosh.
ooh.
They switched punt returners in the game too, so this was the new guy that was
Do you
definitely supposed to catch
now
it.
do you, I couldn't see a clear he was out of the end zone. The ball was out of the end zone, right? Or was it kind of close to being on
I don't
that?
think the ball ever went in the end zone. And when he
Okay.
picked it up and started like running football move, he was at the one. So
Okay.
when they tackled him, it was forward progress that
But
got him
like,
there. But
dude, if you're gonna pick that ball up, I mean that dude's got balls, man. He picked that ball up. I'm like, dude, just fall on it. If anything, you fall on it, you get it at the 2 because but when he picked it up, he moved back 2 yards. So if you saw when he picked it up, he like went back 2 yards and then went forward a yard. I'm like, dude, just fall on it. The worst you can do is try to pick that thing up. And then obviously they had a few other blunders, but yeah,
yeah.
I think Michigan played really well.
Yeah, I most of the time I don't think of Michigan as having like cheeky special teams. So that was like a shock just seeing that all game. The like you said, the missed extra points and the issues on punt returns are just like what the heck is going on here. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about JJ real quick. We don't see JJ get asked to do a whole lot
Yeah.
in the Michigan offense, especially in some of these big games against Ohio State and Penn State. Just manage the game, don't do anything stupid, and it's usually pretty good. And you can do that when you're playing with the lead. But in a game like this, Alabama had the lead at times. And I want to say that's the first time Michigan has trailed all season long. So I thought JJ's like final stat line 17 to 27, 221 yards and 3 touchdowns, no picks, might be one of the best games he's ever played in his Michigan career. It's got to be right up there with last year's game against Ohio State, as far as I'm concerned.
And that
Uh,
trickery too that Michigan decided to employ with that one-handed catch he made and then just chucked it. I mean, he literally looked like he just grabbed it and chucked it and just said, "Hope this guy catches it."
yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Then let me give some flowers here to the Michigan defense here too. Jalen Milrow, 21 carries, 63 yards, 3 yards a carry, non-factor on the ground as
No,
far
not a
as I'm
factor. Yeah,
concerned. Pass game, 16 to 23, 116 yards, no touchdowns. QBR of 45.1. And I want to say, I know in the first half they sacked him 4 or 5 times. I don't know what the final sack total was, but I mean they made Milrow's life very difficult. And I thought that was going to be the best quarterback they faced all season long. Pretty big gap between him and maybe Drew Allers, the next best one they faced this year. But I thought the Michigan defense was definitely they came ready for that. Um, Turnovers, one each. Clean game too, as far as penalties goes. Only 5 total penalties all game long between both teams. But yeah, this was a gritty game, like you and I both thought it would be.
yep.
Um, we both thought that Alabama would come out on top though, but I'm thankful they didn't. And I think that's pretty much wraps up our thoughts there, unless you got anything else to add.
No, no, just disappointment.
Just
Just disappointment.
disappointment
Just
that
disappointment.
Alabama didn't get it done.
Just the fact that Ohio State is not there. Like that's been the hardest part.
Ah,
But
for sure.
another day. We can say that Florida was not anywhere close to there. So,
We can. But next year's our year.
do they say that every year, or is it actually your year?
No. Next year is actually like you can't just listen to other people all the time, Ben. You gotta do your research and
No, I do my research. I'm just looking at the schedule. That's what I'm looking at. I was looking at the
what's on
schedule we
Florida's
have.
schedule?
Just I don't know, like every good team the SEC has to offer.
Well, when you're the best team in college football, you don't have anything to worry
Oh
about.
my gosh. Obnoxious Ohio State fan I am. Wow. Gainesville's just growing on him.
Maybe I'll move there. But no, it's way too hot in the summer. I couldn't do it. Washington and Texas.
What a
I'm gonna go
game.
ahead and say first thought as I'm watching this game is this is the best I've ever seen Michael Penix play football.
Oh,
I know he met
1000%.
29 of 38, 430 yards and two touchdowns. I know he's definitely had higher totals than that, but just watching the way his arm was going, dude, just the way he was fitting the ball into tight windows and just throwing darts and hitting guys in stride deep down the field. I was just like, this looks like a guy that has played college football for 6 years on one end, but also darn shame that he couldn't win the Heisman because of how good of a season Jaden Daniels had. But the receivers, man, I mean, we've talked about the receivers most of the season. Rome Odunze, 6 catches, 125 yards. Polk, 5 catches, 122 yards and a touchdown. And Westover, the tight end that they were talking about, that was the walk-on. I had a really solid story, 6 catches, 59 yards. This is just Michael Penix put on a clinic, I thought. And we'll
Oh,
talk about Texas after
well,
we
I
talk about the winners here. But what a game by
yeah.
number 9.
I think I think to be honest, Michigan keeps having this saying of like Michigan versus the world. I think it's honestly Washington versus everyone because I don't think anybody's ever like no one's ever talked great about
There's a lot of
Washington.
people hating Michigan for sure. So on one end, it is Michigan against the world, but Washington, I don't even think has any people that are for them outside of the Pacific Northwest.
But you know what I'm saying? Like it's so weird to me. It's like
They
even
just quietly
even
win.
us, yeah, like even us, we were like doubting them, and it's like they beat Oregon, they beat Oregon again, and yeah, they had some the slow games. But look, what makes a championship team, right? When it gets tough, you find ways to pull through.
Even
And
in the
look,
game against Arizona State where they struggled, Penix
they
had no
found a way to
touchdowns,
win.
2 picks. The defense held Arizona State to 7 points, and they found a
Yeah,
way.
and look, I this is what I'll say, and I know we'll talk about the game in a bit, but to me, Penix proved what I think everyone thought he's there are some people out there that really believe that he is the Heisman winner, right? I've heard people say, "Well, he's truly the Heisman winner."
Yeah.
Guy had his 8-5 record, and he got the Heisman. Whatever it is, I don't care. Look, Daniels had a great overall season. Like the
He
numbers
led
are
the country in
ridiculous.
total yards
Yeah.
and
Look, no,
touchdowns.
I get it. But if I look at the award, right, and what is the most valuable to my team, right? And I've said this, right? The wins, remember when I was doing my rankings, the wins always mattered up to a point, right? I kept saying, like, I care about wins and proving that you're the guy. The one thing Michael Penix proved is that doesn't matter what's thrown at him, he's going to win and he's going to be a leader and he's going to win. He's the first quarterback since Patrick Mahomes to throw for 4,500 yards in back-to-back seasons. Um, Ridiculous. Let's just remind everyone he came from Indiana.
Hmm.
The Hoosiers, that place that's terrible at football. I remember when he was lighting up Ohio State, right? Like this guy is. By the way, I just want to point out he is 1-0 versus Michigan. Just want to point that out. And I think he proved. I think the receivers proved that their worth. He proved their worth. I think the defense played okay at times. Again, a little weak every once in a while, but look, all you have to do is just get enough stop to let this offense put up 30. If this offense puts up 30, I think it's very hard to beat them. And again, I would like to see them run the ball a little bit more, but hey, when you're throwing for 400 yards, it doesn't really matter. So it's kind of like the Browns. Doesn't really matter. You throw 400 yards, doesn't really matter. So that's what we're going to say about that.
Yeah. The other thing too that really helped them out, I thought, was that third quarter where they had the ball for about 12 and a half minutes, I want to say, and Texas only had the ball for one drive. And want talk about, I mean, kept the ball out of Quinn Ewers' hands, and we're going to talk about Texas here. Quinn's final stat line was 24 43 or 318 yards, a touchdown, no picks. Maybe not his best game, but I mean, he only really got to play football for 3 quarters, basically, when you look at
Yeah.
it that way. And he had the offense. Um, they were down 2 scores, I think, heading into the. Let me check when exactly that was, because I can't remember what point of the game it was. Okay, yeah, Washington outscored them by 10-0 in the third quarter, so they were up. Um, that would be, I'm going to do the math here real quick, 31 to 21. Yeah, up 2 scores there heading into the fourth. And he had him right there in the final play. Threw a ball perfect to AD Mitchell over there. It's just the Washington defensive back made a better play and got the swap, and that was game. But got it. I'm not gonna say tip my hat to Quinn Ewers, but he played a great game. We said that this was going to be
Yeah.
a quarterback clinic with possibly two of the top four quarterbacks in the NFL draft if they if Quinn decides to go. Two of the top passing offenses in the country, and that proved to be the case. The other thing that I think hurt Texas was penalties in this one. They had 10 penalties, 66 yards, and Washington 5 for 39. So Washington also did have the one fourth down conversion in
You
that
know,
game too. But
yeah, I
Texas
mean,
Texas came to play. I mean, they proved that they belonged, I think.
yeah, I mean, it was. I think Texas proved what everyone doubted was like, can they compete with the top dogs? And I think um, they did. And I think, and I do believe Texas is here to stay. I know there's a lot of people out there saying like, oh, it's a one-off. This is not like a Michigan State or like a Penn State. Like this is a team that I
This has
feel
been
like,
like a slow
yes.
progression up.
So I feel like this team next year with a 12-team playoff is going to be in the playoff. Like I think they're going to be the top in the top three of the SEC. Like I don't even think it's going to be close. Um, so for me, I think that's going to be the kind of decision that is going to have to be made for Sark is because Ewers I don't believe has said he's coming back. I believe he hasn't verbally said he's coming back,
He hasn't said
right?
anything, and I figured he'd wait till the end of the playoffs to say
Yeah.
anything, focus on this
Now
game.
it seems like with the quarterback already transferring that it looks like he's coming back, but even if not, like is Arch Manning ready? Not so sure about that. We'll have to wait and see because I think he has a lot of growing up. I think a little bit to do, but yeah, again, I think hats off to Texas, but Washington definitely deserved this win, and it's going to be a fun national title.
Fun national title for sure, which initial thoughts, Michigan, Washington, two 14-0 squads going at it. I think they play football a little bit differently, obviously, although Washington can play defense and Michigan can pop off for points at times. But Michigan, I mean, we said this about the Alabama game. You can't fall behind early.
No,
And I think Alabama did score first in that one, but Michigan didn't let it get out of hand. Michael Penix, though,
don't
if
let him
he's
get ahead.
playing like he did in this Texas game, I don't care if you got Rod Moore, Mike Sanders still, and Will Johnson back there. That is
And they don't just have, and
scary.
the difference is they don't just have one guy like Alabama. Like they don't just have one receiver, and their receivers aren't that great. They don't have just like one guy they go to. They have four dudes that they're like, hey, we're going to spread the wealth.
And they
Um,
did go, this secondary did go against Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka, but
yeah,
Kyle McCord was throwing to them.
and Emeka Buka was still coming back from the injury. You had Stover who was not healthy, right? Remember, he was only playing like half the game.
Yeah,
You had yeah,
this is Odunze,
this is
it's McClellan,
a healthy wide receiver
McMillan.
core.
Yeah,
And this is my other thing. Will we like my thing is what happens if Michigan goes down 14-0? Is Michigan willing to open the playbook? Because that's the one thing that we have not had an answer to. The only thing we have never had an answer to this year is when Michigan gets down by 2 scores or more, can they and are they able to open the playbook and have success in the air?
and
We
have
have
JJ
not seen
make
it.
some more of those risky throws.
Yes. And so if I'm Washington, dude, I'm with the coin flip. I'm receiving the ball. I'm going down and scoring, and I'm trying to put as much pressure on Michigan to make plays. Then, look, either team, right? Like, it's going to be a coin flip. I think either way. But I do believe that. What do you want? We always talk about it, Josh. What do you want in a quarterback? Someone who's veteran, who's been there, who's done that. Now he hasn't played obviously in a national title, but he's been there for what 5 years. He's played college football for 5 years.
This is Michael Penix's
Um,
sixth season, I
yeah,
want to
sixth
say.
season. So look, at the end of the day, you have two coaches who've never been in a national title, right?
Mhm.
Jim Harbaugh is trying to prove a legacy at Michigan, and you're talking about a legacy that could be tarnished or it could be great, depending on how you view it. At the end of the day, who is going to make the last stop? I believe this is going to come down to the last stop, and I believe that's what's going to make a difference. And we'll see what happens. I'm excited. It's a weird excitement because as an Ohio State fan, I'm like pulling for Washington. I'm going to get anything purple and I'm going to wear it, right? I saw a graphic that said who's rooting for who in the national title, and it said the whole United States is rooting for Washington. There was like a little part that was Michigan. It was Michigan. Um, but again, either way, it's going to be a great game. I just want to point out that the Big Ten is going to have a national title next year. I mean, sort of. If Washington wins it, it'll be sort of, but still, there'll be a
They will
national
be
title.
Big Ten teams receiving their national championship rings in a Big Ten season.
Exactly. And that's what matters because it's better than the SEC. But but yeah, so those are my thoughts. I think that's going to come to my keys. My keys, I guess I have two keys. I think key for Michigan, like I said, don't get down multiple scores. And I think you have a good chance to win this game. You believe in your defense, believe in the run game. I think for Washington, my key is that stick with what you're doing. Do not change it. Like I'm looking at Ohio State. Like don't change it like Ohio State. Just stick with what you're doing good. Don't change anything. Make adjustments here and there, but stick with what got you there. Pass the ball, throw the ball. If you had to throw it 50 times, do it. Right? Do what you know to get there. And then finally, I think for both teams is turnover battle. How many times, Josh, have we seen in a national title game turnover battle wins or loses the game? If you win that
Yeah.
turnover battle, you win the game. You lose it, they haven't seen many teams overcome that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say let's look at these offensive lines because we know Alabama's offensive line hasn't been the best, at least in pass protection. Jalen Milroe was one of the more set quarterbacks in college football this season, so the fact that Michigan got to him 4 or 5 times just in that first half alone isn't too shocking to me. And then we saw Michigan, obviously, they're really solid up front with that front seven, containing Milroe in the run game and Jace McClellan, their running back. But on the flip side, Washington's offensive line, this is a unit, man. Michael Penix, I
Yep.
think they said in the game, only has been sacked 11 times all season long. Like when you're
Which
averaging
they don't
less
get
than one
talked about,
sack,
by the way. They never get talked about as their
they never get
offensive
talked
line.
about. No one ever talks about how Washington mans up against the best lines in the country. Like we talk about Oregon being built like an SEC team, but Washington beat them twice, close games, mind you, but
And they weren't
still
double teaming. If you look
they
at their line, they don't double team.
they don't need to do that. They don't get out athleted. They don't get out grid like out toughed. This is a team that can match up with the
They
best of
don't
the
have,
best
and they don't have 5 stars either.
up
Most of
front.
their
Yeah.
dudes are like 3-star, 4-star recruits that they've developed. Keyword developed, and that's the important part.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna say that Michigan's just gonna, dominate them at the
Holy,
line of
yeah,
scrimmage because we haven't seen Washington dominate at the line of
no.
scrimmage all season, I feel like.
But we
So,
also we also haven't seen Michigan getting tested on the deep when they're on defense. We haven't seen them face a great offensive line, so we don't know what it's like. What happens if their linemen can't get pass rush? What happens?
right.
We don't know. We
And
haven't
you
seen
give
it.
Michael Penix time.
Oh, that's scary.
Mm,
Man, that's terrifying.
yeah.
Gosh.
But I also want to at the same time acknowledge that Washington's offensive line is going to have a tough matchup once again, I'll say,
Yeah.
because Texas defensive line is also tough and Oregon defensive line is also tough. And they've gone up against, and it's like, I guess in their mind, this is just another, tough matchup this season, but it's nothing that they haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and I
So
it'll be interesting to see. I'm interested to see the matchup between, Will Johnson and some of these wide receivers. I'm
Will
interested.
Johnson
I'm
versus Rome
interested to see.
Odunze, whoever it
I'm going
is,
to see what
man.
Corum does. I think Corum is a big X factor because I think if McCarthy feels like I have a solid run game, I can rely on Corum, then okay, I don't have that pressure. But I think what happens with Michigan is when Corum's struggling to run the ball, you see McCarthy make some really stupid decisions. And I think that feeling that blanket of security with a good run game helps him because when it doesn't is not there, you've seen it as I've seen it.
Hmm.
He looks terrified out there. And as
Yeah,
much as Jim Harbaugh says, well, he's a solid, he's the best quarterback ever at Michigan. I'm like, okay, Jimbo, let's go, Jimbo. Let's bring this down, Jimbo. All right, let's maybe winningest. We'll say that, but let's not say the best you've ever had. Let's just calm that down.
I mean, if you go 26-1, people rewrite Tom Brady's Michigan career, man. That dude was a sixth-round pick. Nobody thought that
Yeah,
he was anything in college,
and also Jim Harbaugh basically is
but he does
basically
love his players.
and he also looks exactly like his father. Creepy, creepy.
Yeah.
Well, let's
Um,
jump into predictions then, Josh, if you want
yeah.
to, because I think this is gonna be an interesting one to pick. Because I think we might go separate ways on this. I have a feeling.
Hmm. Yeah, on one end, I mean, the same argument that I made for Michigan against Alabama could be applied here. This is a team that has ignored the noise, has stuck together, has played together 3 straight years, has that chemistry, has that trust in each other. But at the same time, Washington's offense, man, is just the way that they played against Texas, the way they've played against Oregon, the way that they've just Michael Penix right there, man. It's scary, man. It's very scary. And yeah, I think I'm really thinking Washington in this one.
You wear that hat and then you
I
choose
know.
against them.
I'm
How
wearing this
dare
hat and I'm
you?
picking
How
Washington,
dare
right?
you?
David Cohn would be ashamed of me.
David Cohn would be ashamed. David, we would love to have you on again in the future. Let us know. We'll talk about
Yeah,
the
but
ballers. We'll talk about your movie. You're now an actor, so we'll talk
yeah,
about that.
but yeah, let me just finish hashing out that thought, man. This, like we just said, Michael Penix with Romo Dunze and Polk
Scary.
and McLean is just like that's talent that Michigan just hasn't faced all season long. And it's an offense that's fully capable of going up a quick 2 scores. And once that happens, is Michigan's offense going to be able to open up with JJ? And the receivers are a lot less to deal with over at Michigan. No disrespect to Roman Wilson and
No,
those
it's
guys
true.
over there, what
It's
they've been
true.
doing, but they ain't Jordan Whittington, they ain't
No.
Xavier Worthy, they ain't A.D. Mitchell. And we just saw what I mean, I won't say Washington secondary handled them, but they
They
made
did
life
what they had to
difficult
do.
for them at times. They made the plays at the end of the game.
Yeah.
They're making the plays at the end, and Quinn wasn't, the most accurate that night. So I really do think that it's time to stop doubting Washington. I think it's time to
Believe in the
finally
W.
believe in Washington. Like view them as that SEC team. View them as that
Big
gritty
Ten
Big
team.
Ten team because they can be.
Yeah.
They got that. They got the flash. They got the athletes. They got the speed. They got the toughness. I'm gonna go, and it's just I guess it's just the only thing that holds people back is how they win by like single digits. They only win by single digits. Can we get a double digit win, Washington? Will it ever happen? But if you just win, that's all that matters, I
Yeah.
guess. And they can win in multiple ways.
So what's your score prediction? Give me a score prediction,
Well,
Josh.
in typical Washington fashion, I feel like they have to win by 1 score. And that 1 score win is going to be dependent upon how Michigan plays in this game. If they're going to also go for 30 in this one, or if it's going to be a much slower paced game. But it could be like a 32-21 final, I feel like, or it could be a dare I say 42-35 final.
I did have a friend here, Josh, in Hungary that was
I'm gonna
like,
go I'm gonna go 30-21 Washington.
okay, there we go. Because I had a friend in in Hungary. He listens to the podcast, and he's like, Josh just never really has a decision on his score predictions. He just bounces around on a few different scores, and then finally gets to
I
one at
have
some
no
point.
conviction
I know you don't. I know you don't.
in my
I'm more that
picks.
I do
There's
have
only a, there's
conviction.
only a few of these games that I ever feel really, really good about. But trying to pick between Michigan and Washington, I don't want to do it. As a matter of fact, right now, let me go ahead and check what Vegas has right now. Oh, Michigan's actually a 5-point favorite.
There ain't no way. Ain't no
Can you
way,
believe they're
bud.
favored 5?
No
They're
way.
favored 5, dude.
I will say this.
I would take Washington to cover that regardless.
Listen, David Cohn, we love you. And I mean that with all of our heart. You're a great guy, great friend of the show. Um, but I'm going to have to pick Washington here. Now, some will say, well, it's because you're a High State fan. Okay, I'll be honest. 20% of this pick is because I'm a High
You
State
ain't
fan.
you ain't getting out of this
20%.
one.
20% of it is a High State, but I also have
But I
80%.
picked Washington too.
I know you jerk. No, 80% of it truly is. I believe that Michael Penix is a quarterback they haven't faced this year, and I agree with you to an extent on how you said this is the best wide receiver core. The difference is that I think that a high stage receiver core is very good. It's just they did not have an offensive line and a quarterback that could match it. I think if you put the offensive line of Washington in an Ohio State uniform, I think it's a totally different ball game, right? Like I think that could be different. Um,
Hmm.
but I think that is something that is you have to kind of figure out as this season goes on, not season goes on, this game goes on, is how do you see this play out, right? How do you see the defense of Michigan? What if they make a stop? How do they respond? Right? How does Washington respond if they score? Do they get a stop or do they let Michigan score? Right? Those responses back and forth. Michigan special teams. I didn't think I would ever say it. Is this going to be an issue? Right?
I think
Does
that
it
was
come
I
out?
really think that was a one-off against
I
Alabama. I
know
don't
I do
think we're
too.
ever going to see
No,
that
I do.
again.
I agree. But I do think, hey, special teams. We both know it as an Ohio State fan. I know it for
Yeah,
sure. It
the
just
Ohio
it's
State
ruined,
special teams,
right?
man,
Like
has
it's
ruined
just
them.
it's awful, right? So this is what I'll say. I think it's going to come down to. I think it's going to be. I think about the same 7-10 points. I think it's going to be. I'm going to go a little lower scoring. I think it's going to be. I think Washington's going to score 30, and I'm going to say Michigan scores 20. So similar to what you said, I do believe that Washington gets to 30. And I just believe that. I just think Michigan's unknowingness of how McCarthy plays when he's behind will be the kind of the downfall for Michigan. And I believe Washington will come on top and will be a great way to send off the year and not see Michigan win a national title.
I will say though that if Michigan doesn't win this, like if you just look at like the past several years and how Michigan has continuously won the Big Ten, won, um, won the Big Ten and then gets to the playoffs and has choked the way they have. They finally get past that this year. It's like this had to be the year that they won a national championship. I felt like to erase all of that.
And if they don't, it's like, okay, what's next then?
Right, because it's not like Michigan is recruiting the way that all these other
No, they're
schools
not.
are.
They're
And you
not.
lose this group of guys. You
Of
lose
studs.
if you lose that group of Corum and Edwards and Roman Wilson and
McCarthy, maybe.
McCarthy and I think
Harbaugh.
Junior Colson and Harbaugh leaves is just like, dang man, I'd hate to see what the Michigan football program is going to look like. Well, we'll find out if the Michigan football program is bigger than all
Yeah.
of that, I guess, because we see coaches leave programs all the time and they stay fine. Like
Yeah.
Oregon didn't fall off when Mario Cristobal
Ohio
left because
State.
they're bigger than Mario Cristobal. Ohio State didn't fall off. Well, some might say that they've dipped, but
But
they're
they're
still a
still the
top.
same
They're
level.
still a perennial
Yeah.
powerhouse under Ryan Day, just like they were Urban Meyer, because Urban Meyer wasn't Ohio State. We're going to find out if the Michigan football program, and we'll honestly find this out about Alabama too, if the
Yeah.
football program is bigger than Nick Saban when he finally retires.
Yeah. It's true. It's going to be a crazy, crazy ride. But hey, it's been a great college football season, and I'm sure we'll recap it next week. But Josh, let's finish the show up by talking about our playoff appearing Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are going back to the playoffs. And as the old uh, Donovan said on the radio, the Browns are going to the playoffs. It's phenomenal. I just love it. I even have my cup. I'm actually proud
Oh,
to
look at
have this
that.
cup. How do you feel,
Dude,
Josh? How do you feel?
well, let me just say that this 11th win shattered my preseason prediction of a 10-7 record.
I beat mine too.
But at the same time, they've won 11 games with four
Dude,
quarterbacks.
that's unreal, dude. Just think
11
about
wins
that.
with four
Just think about
quarterbacks.
that. And when people say Stefanski shouldn't win Coach of the Year, sorry, what? Excuse me. What team is doing that right now? Zero. And also, when I hear Damar Hamlin should win Comeback Player of the Year over Flacco,
Puke.
listen, I know the guy like had a cardiac arrest, but that doesn't mean like he just automatically gets Comeback Player of the Year. I know he was. I know that like he
He
suffered a
got two
traumatic thing.
tackles and he was the 12th man that cost his team a game. He ain't
Like
come back to
so, like
anything
dude, Joe Flacco was literally like on his couch like
on his
4 weeks ago.
couch. Yeah, the only other guy that I think that could have an argument for coach of the year is Dan Campbell over at Detroit,
Yeah, of
but
course.
he's obviously had a lot more to work with over there. Granted, Detroit has never been this good until he has come in the building, but still, I'd like to see him try to win 11 games with four
I would
quarterbacks.
love to see the Browns versus
This is a
Lions in
crazy
the
coach
Super Bowl.
job. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, Baltimore got things done
I
against
know,
Miami and beat the
unfortunately.
piss out of them. So Baltimore's going to hold on to that one seed, unfortunately, and we're only going to get to be a wild card and
Which
play
sucks,
either
dude.
Jacksonville, Indy, or Houston.
Should be by record. So dumb.
Yeah, but got to feel good. Jacksonville we beat. Houston
Texans
we
we beat.
beat.
Colts we beat.
We did beat the Colts, didn't we?
Yeah, beat the
That was a
Colts.
stupid game, but I remember
Beat
it
the
now.
Steelers once.
Yeah, I'm just going with like that first initial playoff
Yeah.
matchup that we might have, but this is good, dude. Yeah, we're in the playoffs. Let me go ahead and check to see who all we're waiting to clinch still. We got Miami is clinched, Baltimore's clinched, Cleveland is clinched. We've got the Chiefs clinching, so we got the four. And then yeah, we're obviously waiting on that division winner with Jacksonville, Indy, and Houston. We're waiting to see if Buffalo is going to be a two-seeder, if they're going to
Or
not
not even
even
make the
make it
playoffs.
entirely, which is
Is
wild.
football wild or is it just me? Like it's just such a
Pittsburgh,
wild
if
thing, man.
Pittsburgh beats Baltimore, because Baltimore, I don't know how they're going to take this game.
I don't think they'll play anybody. I don't think.
Right, that's the thing is like, do you sit Lamar here? And if you do,
It would be a Steelers thing though to choke, like to like have your full starters and then just like
yeah, that's the
choke.
other thing is like Baltimore, do they want to like make sure one of their division opponents stays out of the playoffs?
Like I don't think you want to face Steelers or even the Browns in the playoffs. To be honest with you,
Right. So do they play enough their starters enough to
yeah.
win the game and then just,
I mean, it's the
they
same with
don't
the
have
Brown. Well,
they got
same
the
with the
one seed
Browns.
regardless.
Yeah, it's
That's
the
the
same with
thing
the
is like,
Browns. Like, how
yeah.
much do the Browns play? Do the Browns play their full start? I mean, they
The
don't really have
Browns
anyone
can
else.
I don't think the Browns can affect their seeding
No, what I'm saying
at
is
all,
like, do they
right?
rest? Yeah, do they rest starters
Yeah.
like for the playoffs? But it's also like you don't have anybody left because half your team is injured.
That's the
So
other thing to think about. Yeah, is I don't
like, who
know.
else is left? Like, I want to see Amari go out there and break more records, right? Like, I want to see him go out there and
Yeah,
do some things.
like I'm looking right now, and I don't know if there's any way that we can affect our seeding or
No,
increase
I
it
don't.
or decrease
I
it,
think the
whether we win or lose.
Dolphins can the Dolphins
The
technically jump us to the fifth seed if they would lose,
the
and the
Dolphins got the
Bills
division bagged,
they do have the
I
division bagged.
think.
No, 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 no. Because if then how would the Bills get the two seed then if
Oh,
they
they
have
only
the
got a playoff berth. Okay.
yes? So what I'm saying is that I think if the Bills beat them and we lose the Bengals, there's a chance that we then slide to the six and the Dolphins would get the five. There's a chance. I don't know how that plays out, but
I watched a guy on TV saying all the scenarios, and I'm like,
to be
too
honest,
much.
the Browns, I don't know what team wants to face the Cleveland Browns right now, to be honest with you. Like, what team wants to? Between
Yeah.
us and the Ravens, it could be the Ravens versus the Browns, and that might be the most entertaining game out of all the games.
No, I don't think we can play the Ravens first
That's
round at
true.
least.
Well, the second round we would probably, most
Maybe a
likely.
second round, yeah, depending on how it lines up.
But hey, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
Just
this is gonna be fun. Let's look around the NFC side. We got Dallas and Philly secured, Detroit secured. We got the 49ers and the Rams secured. What we're waiting on is to see if um Tampa Bay or New Orleans wins this division.
yeah,
They're both 8-8. We are waiting on some wild cards with Seattle being at 8-8. We are looking at Green Bay, who's also 8-8. Minnesota, who's 7-9, and
some
Atlanta, who's
Minnesota.
7-9, haven't been mathematically eliminated either.
Just, dude, it's just so bad. It's just some of these teams are so like not good, and they're gonna make
I
the
hate
playoffs.
it, dude.
The seven teams is just ridiculous, to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
That seventh seed hasn't won a playoff game, and they've done this 3 years now, I think.
I think there's gonna be a point when they're just like, guys, this is just pointless. Like this
It's
is
a
just
stupid
not
game. It's
helping.
a meaningless bowl game.
It is. It 100% is. Like unless you get like a bunch of 10-7 teams or like 11-6, 10-7 teams, but even then it's like they're gonna play like a really good team, and
Like
it's
right now, though, it could shape up that seven seed, that two versus seven game could be Buffalo versus the Colts.
that's
You.
not a bad game though. It's not that too bad of a game.
In the NFC,
At
it
least
could
it's
be,
competitive. At least it won't be a blowout.
yeah, maybe that wasn't the best example.
No, I'm thinking of like if it was like the Lions versus like the freaking
The
Falcons. Like
Lions
that's
versus the
terrible.
Falcons is a
That would be
possibility.
awful.
Yeah.
That
Lions
would be
versus the Falcons is a
atrocious.
possibility. Lions versus Falcons is a
The Falcons
possibility.
don't even know who their quarterback is. They change it every week.
Yep.
Like it's ridiculous.
Yep.
And also, I think Justin Fields saved his job over the last few weeks. I think he's going to stay around. I think they're going to get Marvin Harrison, and that's going to be a fun duo.
Hmm.
Little,
Chicago 7-9.
hey, they do get the number one pick though because the Carolina Panthers are terrible, and their owner throws beer on people. I don't know if you
Wild.
saw that. Did you see that
Yeah, I did.
video?
I
It's just
seen that he got fined
ridiculous. Like
for it.
what? Like
Man.
common sense, man. I know you're a
Yeah.
billionaire, and I know you don't care. Anyways, so those are the games. We won't have to go around all the games. Let's look at the Bengals versus Browns game. It's a rivalry game, and let's give us some predictions, Josh. I
I
think it's
want to
going to
know
be
how the
fun.
Bengals have won as many games as they have with
I'm
the
still
offensive
trying to
line
figure
they
it out.
have.
I'm still trying to figure
I
that
watched
out because
Browning get sacked like 8 of the last 10 plays of that Chiefs game.
also can Garrett finally get like I know he got a sack last week. I just want him to get like 2 sacks. Like just come on, dude. Let's just get a few.
Cincinnati is the home team and a 6-point favorite for some reason.
They do have the tied for the leading NFL sack getter in Hendrickson. I didn't know if you knew that. He's tied with Watt for 17 sacks.
Oh, didn't know that. Nope.
Um,
But
I
I
I
think
do think it's
I
gonna be
think ultimately it's dependent upon how many guys the Browns play in this game.
yeah.
But I think they have to play most of them
We don't have
because, like
anyone
you
else.
said, the depth isn't there.
So yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good game. I'm gonna do a couple drill downs. I'm gonna go Browns winning this game. I think Flacco obviously plays and stuff. So I'm gonna go Browns 34, Bengals 17. I'm gonna say Flacco throws for 350, and I'm gonna say Njoku gets 150, and Miles Garrett gets 3 sacks. Big bold predictions.
All the bold predictions. I don't think it's going to be all that high scoring, honestly. I'd probably go. I think the Browns are going to win. I'll give them 26 points. And
You
Bengals, what?
No, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting to hear the fun pointage that you're going to give them.
Oh, I'll give them 17. I feel pretty good the way that Kansas City played defense against them that we can definitely do the
Yeah.
same.
And I think
26-17 final score. Cleveland coming out on top,
12
ending the season
wins.
on a 5-game win streak,
12
and we
wins.
have a 12-win
What?
season.
As a Browns
First
fan,
time in New Browns
like
history.
one of my coaches like makes fun of me. I'm like, dude, you don't understand as a Browns fan how fun this feels. Like this is
Expanded
amazing.
Expansion Browns franchise record 12 wins.
It's freaking awesome. I love it. It's going to be a great year, a great game, and I'm excited to see what happens. I hope Dustin Hopkins comes back because that's like our X factor. Um,
Yeah.
but we'll see what happens. Again, it's going to be a great week of football. Anything else you would like to talk about, Josh, or can we wrap this old show up today?
That's what I was looking through to see if there was anything big, but really hasn't been anything all that huge. We did see DJU decided to go to Florida State.
Yes.
We did see that
Cam
Cam
Ward
Ward
going
decided to
to the
go to the
NFL,
NFL.
which he's not going to get drafted. I'm going to
I
say that.
thought that was a mistake too. Yeah, I thought,
He wanted money. That's the thing. He wants money. That's the problem.
yeah,
His asking price is too
if
high.
he couldn't get the multiple millions in the NIL, he can get multiple millions in the NFL, I guess. It's only going to be for a season or two once the
Yeah.
yeah,
And
unfortunately.
his luck he'll go to like LA and like get no money. Um,
Yeah, and it'll all get
but
taxed the money that he does
obviously,
get.
like I said earlier, Will Howard's visiting Ohio State. Obviously, there's some more transfer quarterbacks in the portal and stuff. So we'll keep you up to date. Again, follow us on Instagram. We'll keep you up to date on everything that's going on. And hopefully we'll have more fun. We'll actually have, dude, we'll have new subjects to talk about after next week, Josh. I mean, we'll still talk about the NFL, but we'll have new subjects. We'll have basketball to
Yeah,
talk about, which will be
yeah.
fun. Because the Cavs suck, and there's not much to talk about outside the Cavs. For the Detroit, I did get a meme today, Josh. It was a car broken into, and the guy said, "I had 2 Detroit Pistons tickets, and then someone broke in my car, and I have 4 now." Um, so
And
yeah,
then
we
I
can talk
had
about that.
four.
Yeah, then we can talk about Wembanyama and everything like that. But we'll talk about more of that next week. So if you've loved this week's episode, go ahead and click that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Let us know you're loving the episodes. I hope you loved the Christmas talk a few weeks ago. We gave out a Christmas traditions. Let us know what you think about that. Also, Happy New Year. Let us know in the comments below New Year goals or resolutions or whatever you call it. We'll ask Josh next week if any of his have still going after a week. We'll ask him next week. We'll check in on that. No, but we hope you guys have a great, safe weekend. Hope you have fun with your family and friends. And as always, until next time, we'll see ya.